Hello, and welcome to another episode of St. Jude and Five-ish. As we begin 2019, we asked Chief Executive Brian Helleland to share his thoughts on the upcoming year. Happy New Year, Brian. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
So the new year is not only a time for us to think about looking forward, but it's also a time for us to reflect on the successes that we experienced in 2018. So can you talk to me a little bit about the successes that we experienced?
Happily. Thanks for giving me a chance to go backwards a little bit and talk about those successes instead of jumping right into the 2019. We did have a lot of successes, a very successful year. I'm going to keep using that term, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But we had great clinical outcomes. We led the health system in a lot of our patient experience areas. Our inpatient patient satisfaction was phenomenal. ED had a nice steady increase throughout the year, and that was very impressive as well. We also had great financial results. We started the year a little slow and recovered very nicely as we closed up the year and beat budget actually by a significant amount. And then also like to shout out to our philanthropy team. They also exceeded their goals, and we had a great philanthropic year as well. And then on top of all that, our overall engagement, I think, continues to be very strong. And I'll also like to, in addition to our caregivers, say thank you to our physicians. They've been incredibly engaged, and their engagement scores were up there at the top of the nation.
It's really very impressive. And so speaking of successes, can you give me an update on the EIP?
I would be happy to. We did it. You all did it. We are happy to announce that we'll be paying out the full $1,300 this year for meeting both those clinical patient experience outcomes as well as our financial goals. So
great news. Great news. Now, speaking of moving forward, so now that we have achieved all these successes, is it just time for us to kind of rest on our laurels and sit back? Or what do we need to do to achieve those successes moving forward?
Well, I think the main thing that we need to do, if we break apart operations from some of the strategy that's in front, and I think 2019 will be a big year for both. We're starting the year in a great place with our operational targets for where we're ending the year and going in. Nothing that is out of our reach. I think we're at a great starting point. But then on the strategy side, there's going to be new things. We talk about the disruptions, those disruptors. You can't read the news or watch the news and you're not talking about all the disruptors in healthcare. Well, we have all of our strategies to try to combat that, and we'll be introducing and talking about some of those partnerships. Some of those partnerships, you'll hear things like Extra Care, which is an urgent care partner, Express Care, that term of more convenient care. One Medical is something that we'll be pursuing as a broader organization for a little bit more Google customer service type of approach to ambulatory care. And then for us, all of our ASCs on the hospital side. We've got our ASC opening that just opened and seeing patients up the street. We're going to continue to have conversations with HOI and some cancer partners for those big centers of excellence. So lots coming in 2019. I think it'll be a little bit more of an exciting year versus maybe a transitional type year.
Sounds very exciting. You had me at Google. Now, you spoke in the beginning about the St. Jude culture, and can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean when you say that the St. Jude culture is stronger than the challenge?
Yeah, and I think back to when we started, that the reason I talk about success, we have proven that we can successfully implement. But I think the year in and of itself, some people may have not felt that it was a great year, and because we had to say goodbye to some colleagues and friends. We had other just changes because of what's going on in our industry and still coming together as one larger organization. So it may not have felt like a great year. So I want to acknowledge that, but still focus on the successes. And I think our ability to differentiate between those two things is what I mean by our culture is stronger than the challenge. We are passionate about the great care, and I think we've got caregivers that understand that it takes work to be great, and we are working harder and doing more and challenging ourselves more than the average hospital because we have that passion about being great, and people have genuine interest in the pride of what we're trying to do, not just as an organization, but for the fact that our caregivers work here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think our culture is what sets us apart. So now before we go, I want to try something a little fun. You're going to be our first guinea pig. And so we want to do an improv exercise, what we're going to call 5 and 5.
All right.
And so I'm going to ask
Sounds a little Jimmy Fallon-ish.
We might have stolen it from Jimmy Fallon.
All right.
But I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and as quickly as you can think of a 1-word, 2-word, very brief answer, you're going to spitfire it back to me.
All right.
Okay? Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, here we go. What is the best condiment?
Mayo.
Who's your favorite superhero?
Iron Man.
College or high school nickname?
I thought you were just going to say college or high school. High school. Oh boy. Rushford Rocket.
Seconds.
The Rushford Rocket.
What do you do to pass the time at red lights?
My honest answer is text. But
Doesn't sound very safe.
I think about my workday at St. Jude.
And then what is one thing you are personally looking forward to in 2019?
I am going to be a grandfather for the first time, and
Oh my gosh.
we're leaning on the word G-pops is what
G-pops!
is what one of my sons says is that's first on the list is G-pops.
I really like that, actually. G-pops. That could be your new nickname.
That'll work.
Brian, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And just as always, we have a few quick announcements. The Brea 8K is going to be on February 24th, so please sign up for that. St. Jude's famous Kickball League is also about to start, and the deadline to sign up is February 6th. And then we also have our February open houses, which will begin in the beginning of February, so stay tuned to SJ Today for more information on all of those. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah.